Today we're going to talk about soldering and waterproofing PL259 connectors. So today's discussion is on PL259s. And this is becoming relevant for me because I just had one fail. And granted, it was my fault because I got lazy, and I'll show you how I got lazy here in a minute. But for now, suffice to say that the failure was the ground shield on the coax wasn't making a good connection with the PL259. And I'm totally to blame for that, and I'll show you why here in just a second. But so PL259s are a problem because they're outdated. They're not really suitable for anything above 30 megahertz for sure. And even then, at 30 megahertz, they're marginal. But we're kind of stuck with them because all of the equipment we buy, including all of the popular 2 meter, 70 centimeter mobiles, use SO239/PL259 connections. So this is something that probably should change at some point in amateur radio and radio in general, because there really needs to be a better option. So, you know, probably the best option would be the end connector, and for many reasons. One, because it provides a true 50 ohm connection between the coax and the radio, where in some cases these PL259s do not, especially when they're the cheap variety like this, which you really shouldn't buy, but which I'm stuck with for the time being, at least until my next Amazon order comes in. So we'll discuss this one today, but if you're going to buy these and you haven't bought any yet, I would go straight to an Amphenol connector and just buy those because they're much, much better and will work out much better for you in the long run. So this is going to be a connector that's going to go up in the air. And the failure, I'm not exactly certain what the failure was, but I put an ohm meter on the other end of this coax, and I was wiggling this connector. So I had the connector set up like this, and I was wiggling it, and I was watching. I had a short on this end of the connector, of course, so I was reading a short at the other end of the coax, a DC short, and I just started wiggling this, and I started seeing it momentarily go open and then come back. So I knew the problem was in the connector, and I assume it was on the shield side of this because this is stranded coax and the solder joint was in pretty good shape. So anyway, what happened? So what had happened is I get lazy sometimes when I'm doing these connectors, and what I will do is I will take the shield and I will unravel the shield. I will shove it back, and then I will take the ferrule or adapter or whatever you want to call it, reducer I guess would be the correct word, and I will just shove it on there. And if the particular coax that I'm using, if this is a nice tight fit, I'll run with it and I'll just leave it that way. But that's not the correct way to do this. So the correct way to do these connectors is what you want to do is you want to pull your reducer up against that shield / PVC coating junction, and you want to pull your ground over like that. And then you want to trim it so that it's over top of this reducer. And then you want to trim this back, and I can actually go ahead and do that right now. So you want this to be 1/8 of an inch, like so. That might actually be more than 1/8 of an inch, but we'll try it. And then what you want to do is very carefully, without getting one of these strands up here touching the center conductor, you want to just thread that on with this trimmed so it's not in the threads, of course. And what you end up with when you do that is you'll be able to see that ground shield in here, and you're supposed to solder it. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, now that we're clear on the wrong way to do it, let's concentrate on the right way. So once again, I'm going to cut back. Let's get this out of the way for now. And I cut it back just to the base, right about there. I'm going to score the jacket without touching the shield. And then now, before I separate the braid, I'm going to slide my threaded part on. And I'm going to thread or slide a piece of heat shrink in there too. Because if we don't do it now, we won't get it on later. Okay, now our ferrule goes on. And now we can open this up. And once we get that significantly opened up, once again we give it a haircut. Okay, now we've got the shield over top of our reducer instead of under it. 1/8 of an inch. And now we can thread our connector on there. And now it's solder time. You have to get this hot enough so that it sticks to 3 things. The ground shield, which is easy. The outside part of the PL259, which is difficult because it's a big mass of metal. And then the reducer that's underneath of all of that. So it really needs to stick to all 3. And very important after you do this and you're getting ready to do the center conductor, you need to let it cool down because the center material is just a plastic in most cases, and if you get it too hot it will melt and your center pin will start moving around because of the heat. So I'm going to wait until that fully cools down. Okay, here we go with the center pin. It's completely cool now. Okay, I'm just going to trim that off, level with the end, and we're almost done. This is just a double check to make sure that I didn't get something in there shorting out, like coax shield or something. We're good. Okay, now here's where we're going to do something a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little tiny piece of heat shrink. I'm going to slide that up over this connector, like so. Actually, that's still a little bit too long. There, as long as it's not in the threads, should be good. So that outside threaded part will go right past that heat shrink that we put in there. Okay. So the thing is that once you do it like this, once you put the heat shrink on, you'll no longer be able to slide this off. And that can be a problem because if you're connecting to an SO239, typically you want to try and line up those little indents and then thread the connector on, like so. And you won't be able to do that once you slide this on. So let me go ahead and shrink this down. I'll show you what I mean. You do want to leave as much as you can. So I'm just going to just barely get that up over the main body of that connector. Like so. And now this will be trapped in there. So basically what you have to do is when you have to shove this on like so, you're going to turn it until you feel the indent. You're going to have to feel it, not see it. And it's pretty obvious when it's in there, and you can just go ahead and tighten it up. So this isn't making a waterproof PL259, but it is preventing any chance of moisture wicking up from this side of the coax and getting in here and causing a problem. So as you can see, this is the feed point for one of my antennas, and I like to do it this way because the balun has no breaks in the coax. There's no PL259 and no barrel connector further down this line. This goes all the way to, not all the way to the shack, but all the way to the wall just outside of the shack. So that area is covered by a porch, so I don't have to worry about it getting wet. So the only possibility of moisture intrusion is right here at this PL259. And by doing this, you can kind of minimize that. So as my final check, I'm going to make sure that I'm okay end to end on these connectors. And we're good. Thanks for watching.